In this video, we will be talking about the importance of psychedelic drugs and their uses to treat many different medical afflictions, such as addiction and mental illness. To start off, you first need to know what a psychedelic drug is. Psychedelics, also known as hallucinogens, are psychoactive substances that cause temporary changes in the user's perception, mood, and cognitive process. Psychedelics alter how the user thinks and feels and can often result in hallucinations.
Wait, what are psychedelic drugs?
Psychedelics, also known as hallucinogens, are psychoactive substances that cause temporary changes to the user's perception, mood, and cognitive process. Psychedelics alter how the user thinks and feels and can often result in hallucinations.
So do we know the root cause of these changes?
We do. Research suggests that some of the more noticeable psychedelic effects stem from activity in the prefrontal cortex. They also disrupt communication between different parts of the brain, hence the alterations in how one thinks.
What are some examples of psychedelic drugs?
Psychedelics are found in many different types of forms. Some are naturally made of plants and fungi, and others are made in laboratories. Paper tablets, dried mushrooms, and powders are different ways to consume them. Some commonly used psychedelic drugs are LSD, magic mushrooms, and DMT.
Why and what psychedelic drugs were used in ancient times? Psychedelic drugs have been used for many millennia. The first marked uses were by indigenous tribes who often used these drugs for medicinal and religious reasons. Ayahuasca tea, which is tea made from shrubs containing hallucinogenic compounds, was used by tribes in the Amazon. The drug imposes several different symptoms, including vomiting, feelings of euphoria, visual hallucinations, and more. In cases like this, users are often guided through the experience by a shaman to ensure that the individual feels safe and that they remain in a calm mental state to fully absorb the experience. Tribes in the Amazon were not the only people to experiment with psychedelics. Native tribes in North America often partook in religious sacraments and ceremonies using a psychedelic drug called peyote. Although peyote and ayahuasca are different substances, they have very similar effects. What happened in the 1900s concerning psychedelics? Entering the 1900s, the public began to ask questions and start researching the effects of psychedelics. This led to the invention of synthetic psychedelics. A notable creation by researcher Albert Hofmann is lysergic acid diethylamide, or more commonly known as LSD.
Around the 1970s, as psychedelic drugs became more widespread, the war on drugs was declared as a national issue by former President Nixon. Substance abuse and addiction was seen as a growing issue that warranted strict control, such as imprisonment for drug-related crimes. The Drug Enforcement Administration was additionally created to help solve the growing issues that drugs were causing. From this, a majority of psychedelic drugs were deemed as Schedule I substances and highly dangerous to use due to their sheer addictiveness that they provided with minimal doses. The government's sudden pressure to end the use of psychedelics caused the public to see psychedelics very negatively, where any potential medical benefits were completely ignored. Also adding to the negative light of psychedelics were several cases of cult leaders such as Charles Manson and Anne Hamilton Burns that utilized psychedelics to cause harm to their followers and non-followers.
When drugs died down, research was able to rise back up and continue without worry. Multiple studies have been conducted that have proven to reduce the participants' feelings of anxiety by giving them therapy with little assistance from LSD. Psychedelic therapy sessions has also been even shown to halve the amount of days alcoholics spend drinking.
So, what do you know about psychedelic drugs?
Know that they do cause hallucinations and that they do alter your sense of awareness.
And they don't do very much good for people.
They change your state of mind. They're hallucinogenic. I know that they're not actually addictive, contrary to what a lot of other people say, because
And with that knowledge of psychedelic drugs, do you think there are any dangers in using them?
I think that they could be dangerous, obviously, if you take too much of them. Also because they are very highly addictive, as far as I'm aware, so they could be dangerous. But I think they're mostly used like on and off.
So obviously you do think there is some danger. Are there any other dangers that you think come along with using these drugs?
No, not much. I think that addiction is just a really big one. It doesn't really do any good.
it could be dangerous if you abuse them, just like with any drug. But if you use them in moderation, like very, very moderate, then you should be fine.
What would your opinion be on using psychedelic drugs in the medical field to treat things such as addiction and mental illness?
I think they absolutely should be used for medical treatment.
I think that, probably in a safe and controlled environment, they could probably help, but I'm not.
I don't think so. No, I think that they're classified as the drugs that they are. Like it's so severe, and that the government hones down on that because they shouldn't be used at all.
So how comparable are psychedelic drugs to legal drugs such as nicotine and alcohol?
If you use psychedelics at the same rate that someone would use nicotine or alcohol, you'll have some pretty bad effects with the mind and everything. But it has been found that using psychedelics can treat your dependencies on alcohol and nicotine. So in a sense, you could see them as better.
I definitely think that legal drugs are probably a lot more safer, considering that psychedelics are not entirely all legal themselves.
Yeah, I think that nicotine and alcohol and legal drugs like that, we already have a lot of research and data for them, so we know that they're not as dangerous as psychedelic drugs. So I think that in that case, those legal drugs are okay.
Do you think they're at all comparable to other drugs that are on the Schedule 1 registry, such as heroin, cocaine, methamphetamines?
I think that they're definitely in the same category. Psychedelic drugs are illegal for a reason, and they're in that same category. They don't do any good. It just promotes addiction onto other people, and they can have really harming effects for people who use them.
I think they're definitely not as dangerous as maybe cocaine, heroin, the harder drugs, but I definitely do think that they do have some level of danger.
I think that they are nearly as bad as any of those drugs because cocaine, meth, all those have extremely addictive properties, and you'll never see someone out on the streets cracked out on LSD or anything. It's all on the drugs that are really addictive.
How should we combat the stigma around psychedelics?
Keep an open mind.
Trust medical professionals.
Find credible research to educate yourself.